What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Legion TD2 tier list. It has been a long time coming, but we finally have all of the fighters, all the way up until the Crabmancer, which is the newest unit. Finally, we get the biggest tier list we have ever done. I'll try to make it as quick as possible because I know there's obviously a lot of units here. But please don't forget, like, subscribe, check out all my other Legion TD2 content as well. And let us just get started here. So as I'm talking, I'm going to be going through the stock tier 1s. So Bone Warrior by himself, obviously terrible. It's tier 1 unit with no upgrades, nothing. Obviously, as you can see, we have Bone Crusher and other people like that. Everybody's on here. So obviously Bone Crusher is not a D tier unit. We'll get to him. We can just get to him now, actually. But that's what I'll be doing. Most tier 1 stock units are going to be down here in D tier because that's where they belong. But Bone Crusher I'm going to give to A. I might even throw him up to S. He's definitely one of the best tier 1s in the game just because he is a little bit more on the expensive side of tier 1s, but having an early game tank that you can push workers behind that has health regen is pretty huge. Definitely worth the price. Definitely one of the best tier 1 units in the game, Bone Warrior is. With the option of having Dark Mage as well, which is a great unit to be able to increase your attack for other units. And the price is very nice as well, being $80 plus the 15 for the stock Bone Warrior himself. Now, Fire Archer I'm going to put into B. I think it's an okay upgrade for a tier 1 just to kind of get a little bit more like heavy damage from a tier 1, but it's not too crazy. I mean, you could definitely throw them into C and it wouldn't be a huge deal, honestly, but it is what it is. I definitely think Bone Warrior definitely has the most utility as a tier 1 for sure. Buzz himself, I'm going to put into C. I think the only reason why he's not in D is just because of the poison after he dies can be a little bit helpful sometimes, especially early game, but overall Buzz isn't too great of a unit. And then Consort, Consort definitely gets B. I almost want to put Consort into A. I'll give Consort an A. I think for a tier 1, having that poison and a little bit like pretty mid attack and tankiness, I'll give him to A. Let's see. I'm trying to get like every unit together. So Sea Serpent and Deep Coiler is definitely one of my favorite units in the game. I definitely think it's underrated. I'm gonna go Sea Serpent and B. But Deep Coiler all the way up into S. Now that might just be a little bit more my opinion, but people just do not use this unit, and you definitely should. If you place all your units as far back as you can and place them all the way up in the front row, they're going to take out any backline mercenary sins. It's just super helpful. And the price is definitely good, and Deep Coiler against like Wave 10 boss is huge. That thing chunks. But I think overall, it's definitely a very, very good utility unit. You could put Deep Coiler down into A, and I wouldn't necessarily argue too much, but that's just my opinion. Deep Coiler is definitely super underrated. It's why they keep buffing them in the patches, because nobody uses them, not because they're bad, but, you know, it is what it is. Now, Butcher, I'm going to put Butcher into A and then Head Chef into S. I think the healing aura for up to 6 other units is arguably the best aura in the game, and has obviously healing himself, the lifesteal, so being able to give that to 6 other units is massive. And Butcher honestly isn't also a bad start because you can place him and do 2 workers instantly and be alright, you know. Decent tank, not necessarily the best, but the utility that he brings with having, you know, lifesteal plus he then heals on top of that once he gets his mana he's definitely one of my favorites in the game as well. Super, super good, super worth the price and the upgrade. Sea Dragon and Life Dragon, I'm going to give to B and A. I think the biggest reason why they're not higher is just because while I understand you have to do different things with units, you know, because there's so many, the fact that they harm themselves by healing can definitely cause problems. They're still good, and if you have them around the butcher, then you know you don't have to worry about that really. But it's still kind of still can be a problem, especially early in the game. Nico Mata, since there's only one, and now we can finally take away stacks just in case, definitely deserves an A tier. Definitely one of the best. I think it's technically a tier. Is that a tier 2 or tier 3 technically with Nico? Um, but still, the fact that it's so nice to have if you have a little bit of extra money just to throw some stacks, and it's good. I mean, it'll heal, especially at full stacks. It'll heal its kills and everything. So Nico's definitely one of the best utility in the game, and definitely easily worth the price, especially earlier in the game that you are. So Nico is a fantastic utility A tier unit in my opinion. One of the new units, the Dwarves. Honestly, I'm going to put them pretty low. I think just to get some extra gold, they're not really worth it. They don't do a whole lot of damage. They're not very tanky. It's just the possibility of them surviving to get you some extra gold, which, yes, you know, can be worth it for sure. But other than that, if they're not surviving, they're just not good by themselves, you know? Like, they don't have very much damage. They don't have very much health, so I don't use them very much, and every time I've tried it, it just seems like a pretty lackluster unit in my opinion. Honeyflower, they've always struggled to buff and nerf Honeyflower because it's definitely one of the better AoE units in the game. Um, I'm gonna put Honeyflower into B because it doesn't even clear wave 2 by itself anymore, which is kinda sad. Um, but it's still okay. But the only way it's good is honestly with Deathcap. Now, Deathcap I'll give to S, because Deathcap's AoE is disgusting. Especially if nobody's going after the unit, it can do a massive amount of damage. But Honeyflower in itself is honestly not, it's just not as good as it once was. We see all the Trents here. Trent by himself, Trent by himself I'll give to B. I think it's a pretty decent unit, especially something to like start with and have a little bit of extra tankiness, and they do start with some extra health and then lose it. I think that's only for 3 waves that happens. But then we'll do Tree of Life first. Tree of Life, honestly, to me, is okay. I mean, it's definitely an upgrade to Trent, and if you build correctly, you can have the person behind them gaining health regen, so it's decent. But I personally, Tree of Knowledge is a S tier freaking upgrade, man. That thing, if it goes unchecked and it gets full mana and explodes, that thing is doing a massive amount of damage no matter what wave it is. And if it explodes and it's still not being attacked and still doesn't die, it's just gonna gain that mana every time. It'll either gain all the mana and explode and keep doing it until it finally dies, but whenever it ends up dying, it will explode with whatever mana it has. So it can be destructive. Definitely worth the upgrade, and honestly, for a total of $280 to have a unit that does that much damage with a decent amount of tankiness is a great unit for sure. I'm putting these down here because Poliwag and I always mix up which one is Atom and Proton. I believe that's Atom and that's Proton, but I could be wrong. For some reason, I always mix them up, but not that great. But since we're talking about them, I'll give this one honestly B. I think that upgrade is very good. The longer the wave goes on, especially with if you have a Steed and stuff like that, or Starcaller and or the mana regen uh, King upgrade, or not King upgrade, Legion spell, sorry. But since we're talking about Steeds, I see Steed right here. Steed herself, I'm gonna give to B, but then Pegasus I'm throwing into S. I think having a unit give mana to spread out among your team can make so many other units so strong. And them having magic attack and arcane defense is obviously the best of the two as well, so that's huge. And I haven't really mentioned that too much so far, but that magic attack is the best attack, arcane defense is the best defense, so having both of those in one unit is nasty, even though they're not super, attack heavy or defensive heavy. They're definitely a utility unit, but the amount of utility that they bring to any team, even if you just have one other mana unit, or even if you don't have mana, when they reach full mana, they get attack speed. So no matter what, they're going to be a good unit and definitely worth it to me. Definitely one of the better units in the game. Harpy, I'm honestly putting Harpy still at D. I mean, I just think that they can't figure out how to make it better. They have changed it, they have upgraded it, everything like that. Harpy is just not good. Now I am having trouble seeing Sky Queen. I must be blind. I know I saw her earlier, but she is actually a whole lot better. Here she is. I'll give Sky Queen, all the way to A. Because she can definitely deal out a whole lot of damage, and she just goes by each attack gains her mana, and especially with somebody like Steed gaining that, she can definitely throw out a whole lot of damage, but really only early game, and then after that the utility just plummets. Since we threw Poliwag up here, I see Seraphine. Seraphine is okay for a tier 1 upgrade. I'm just going to put it in C. It's really not that great. Devilfish I will put into B. I think it's decent to have a tank as a tier 1 for the first little bit. Now the utility that overall Poliwag's upgrades bring is nice because you can switch back and forth each and every wave with no cost to you, so that is huge. But still, Poliwag is decent. I mean, there's better choices for sure, but there's also worse choices, so it just kind of depends on what exactly you want. Ranger here. I think I'm going to put regular Ranger, honestly, in C. It's good for the price, but it's not going to really do much except for the first few waves. Now, Daphne, the upgrade is way better. Definitely one of the better units in the game. But I don't know that it's S tier. I don't know that Daphne is S. For sure A, 100%. Worth the price for sure, and worth the damage. And the utility that she brings by marking the target, I'll throw her into S because of that. Definitely deserves it. Minimum A for sure, but we'll give her to S. She's definitely one of the better units in the game, even as a start. So another not new unit anymore. It was the first new unit that we got, from what I remember, is the Gatling gun. I'm honestly going to put Gatling gun into B and Vulcan into A. Now, I can see why people want to put them into S, but it just varies. It's definitely very difficult to get the placement right, and even if you're an experienced player, placing them correctly with all of your other units can be a challenge, especially just, in the heat of battle. But aside from that, the fact that on certain waves, like wave 11, 15, 19, I don't think there's any, 8, they struggle, just because the wave itself is so much further back. So they definitely struggle those waves, and 19 is obviously one where they're supposed to be good pierce-wise, but obviously because of how far back they are to the wave, they struggle to really deal as much damage as they should. Now, they're definitely great, especially Vulcan Cannon, but I think with having to place them so specifically and them having waves where they just naturally aren't good, pretty much no matter what, it's kind of hard to throw them into S just because of those natural problems. Um, Let me see who else I can see all of. We'll start on here. Su Feng. Honestly, I'm putting Su Feng down in D, and the upgrade, maybe that's Su Feng, I don't know. But either way, they're just not good to me. To have the only way that they're good is if you have so many attacking one unit, but they're so weak that they die. That the amount that you're going to be bleeding that unit is not a lot. Um, and even so, even if you do kill that unit, which you would have to, it would have to be early rounds for sure. That it's just, I get the idea. The idea is good. The unit is just not. Now the new Goblin guy, he's okay. I'll give the new Goblin guy a little bit more love because he can definitely, if going unchecked, can deal a decent amount of damage for a tier 1. But still, like, it's not going to be anything crazy. The later the game goes, the more he's going to just fall off. Like, he'll still do a decent amount of damage for a tier 1 no matter what, wave it is, but, definitely less meaningful the later the game goes on. Yozora and Archetyre, I can't really put Yozora even lower than A. I mean, we could drop her to A just to have the upgrade be up there, but still definitely nobody will disagree that Yozora is one of the best units in the game, period. Always has been, always will be. The dodging, the area effect damage, and just the price of her plus the what you get for an amount of damage and tankiness is unmatched in any other unit in the game. So Yozora is always going to be one of the top tier units in the game for sure, unless they just absolutely nerf her to the ground, which I do not see happening. Radiant Halo, I'll give to B, and I'll do Arc of Justice. Definitely A. I just feel like it's definitely a boss killer for sure. So on 10, 20, even 15, if you get to the boss, it's great. Um, but it's hard to warrant it because obviously the goal of the wave is to kill it. So you're gaining the amount of damage you're doing, but the faster you kill those units, then the less they're going to be doing. It just kind of, sometimes it doesn't feel like it works very well doing it that way. Same with like Berserker, but still definitely one of the best boss killers in the game, worth the price. I mean, it's not a bad unit by any means, but I mean, you could throw Arc of Justice into S, and I wouldn't really be too mad about it, but it's still not too amazing to me. Lord of Death, Hades for sure goes into S. I think Lord of Death probably just into A. Being able to spawn those units is massive. Magic damage, arcane defense, and once you get a Hades upgrade, the amount of health he gets is massive for, a backline shooter. Um, but being able to spawn more and more units, and that's just naturally not with Starcaller, Steed, all of that other stuff is great for this game. He definitely a very, very good unit, especially on magic waves for sure. So definitely good. Slime and Slime Siren. Slime I'll give to C just as a little bit of a helping utility unit spawning more and causing a ruckus, and Slime Siren I'll give to B. Decent units, but still not really like, oh my god, it's not gonna really change the wave necessarily. Um, it just kind of holders until you can either kill the wave or other people are, gonna kill it, but they're okay. I mean, you could maybe put Slime Siren into A, but I don't really even think so. But that's just how I feel about her. Trying to make sure I'm getting okay. So Gargoyle by himself, I'll give to C. Green Devil, I'll give to A. I think he's definitely worth the price, taking way less damage because of arcane defense and magic attack, and I believe he takes less range damage. I know for a fact that that's Golden Buckler, Royal Guard, but I think he does too, if I'm not mistaken. He does something with the Green Devil upgrade. I might be wrong about that. Um, but still a very good unit overall. Definitely worth the price. Nothing to say there. Speaking of Royal Guards and Golden Buckler. Hmm. Okay, Royal Guard for sure is an A. It's super underrated in my opinion. I used to really hate Golden Buckler and Royal Guard, but I used them a couple times and realized that they're actually pretty freaking good. Um, Way better than I thought. Super underrated. Um, it's hard to put Golden Buckler up there though, because I don't feel like it's necessarily better than Gargoyle stock wise, but it's close. Both of these three, I would say, could definitely go into B, but it is what it is. Okay, so Looter, pretty bad. This Looter I'll give to B, mostly just because of the possibility of Mythium, but still you're going to be losing that fighter value on the wave, which later in the rounds it doesn't really make a huge difference because it's a tier 1 crap unit anyway. But gaining that Mythium, I've just never had it be very worth it. It's very like back and forth on whether it's worth it or not to me, but to me it's never really been. Now Mask to me is just terrible. I have never really enjoyed Mask. Um, I feel like you have to have a lot of help for Mask to be good, mostly just because a tier 1 AoE unit is not that great. Um, Now with like APS, Dark Mage, and stuff like that, like Mass Spirit or Hellraiser, sorry, can be devastating for sure for a tier 1, but you just need a lot of it to be pretty successful in my opinion, and it's not worth it. Definitely one of the units that everybody else kind of likes a lot more than I do. That's just me. Mudman, Mudman is just fucking bad. Okay, Golem I'll put into A. The only reason why this guy is even remotely okay is if you harden him. Alright, Golem, decent. You definitely get way more health with the upgrade of Golem, and if you harden on the right waves, it's gonna work out for you. But the problem is, one, then the next wave you're gonna be shit, so if you mess up, you're gonna be fucked. And two, they attack so slow, they're just there to tank, and they don't, especially Mudman does not even tank well for being a unit that is supposed to be a tank. I cannot ever stand behind Mudman and Golem. I just cannot do it. Cannot. Warg. Warg is honestly pretty bad by himself. He does have some very good upgrades. We'll do Alpha Male first, which I think is the lesser one. So Alpha Male is good. 200 gold for the upgrade of Alpha Male. A lot of health, pretty good amount of damage as well. But the problem is if you get some high tier units around him and build and upgrade them, he actually becomes worse. So he can only become worse while Lioness, which is 175 gold instead of 200, if you build up good units around Lioness, like if you get an upgraded Hades right next to Lioness, she actually increases her stats. So she gets even better the more high tier units and upgrades that you put around her. So it's definitely, I like building around Lioness and having her just get her stats increased for free basically. You know, it's definitely worth it to me. Infiltrator. Hmm. I think Infiltrator and then Orchid I'll give to B and A. I think they're a little bit underrated. I think the utility that they bring with being able to throw a couple bucks into some shurikens and stuff is nice. Um, but Orchid is actually pretty good. I think it's still pretty underrated, but not necessarily the best unit, just a decent unit plus then a little bit of utility, but having some magic attack is good as well. So I think it's a pretty good overall unit. Now, okay, I don't see, okay, we still got decent amount down there. I'm trying to keep the whole list up here and pull from here first. Let's see who else we got. Who else I can see everybody of. Um, Gate Guard. Gate Guard I'll give to B, and Harbinger. Honestly, I'm keeping Harbinger in B too. It's really just like Gate Guard and Harbinger really aren't that great. Um, yeah, they spawn units, which is nice. Definitely a good utility unit. You can definitely just Gate Guard spam, which used to be a thing. I think they nerfed it. But honestly, the upgrade really doesn't help that much. Um, I think in recent patches they've kind of adjusted it to maybe it does a little bit. Like you could put him up into A and kind of get away with it, but still overall there's just a whole lot better units and much more trustworthy units than Gate Guard and Harbinger. Aqua Spirit, decent. Rogue Wave, I've never been a huge fan of. Um, you definitely have to have the right units for it to be worth it to me. But Fire Elemental, definitely going into A, but I might throw it into S. Just because Fire Elemental is so good, especially early game, to kill like some backline lizards or even kill some drakes with its fire and stuff like that. It's definitely super underrated, that extra little bit of fire damage that you see. Now, the price is a little bit hefty. Not hefty, but it's heftier than obviously Rogue Wave, but I think it's worth it. Minimum A, maybe S tier, but I like Fire Elemental. Definitely a pretty good unit there for sure. I'm trying to see everybody I can see. Alright, Boar. Alright, you guys are gonna hate me on this one too, but Boar is fucking bad, okay? Like, you have to build so specifically for this thing to be even remotely good, and honestly, it's just not. Like, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage except for the initial impact, which, I mean, you throw out a snail or something and it's gonna mess it up, basically. And then after that, it's not gonna do a whole lot of damage, and while it has a decent amount of health, it just like, because then it's going to be first, it really doesn't do anything. You have to build so specifically for Boar to be successful, and as a tier 6, like, it's not worth it. It just simply isn't. Angler by himself is bad. Bounty Hunter is okay, especially if you get full stacks. And then Kingpin definitely deserves S tier if you have a full stack Kingpin. And that's just by himself. If you have any other like Legion spell to go on him, you have some auras like Butcher, anything like that, that Kingpin can just smack a fucking wave. Especially like if you have a Kingpin on 10, man, he's gonna destroy that boss. Maybe not by himself, but he's gonna do a whole lot of damage and tank for a decent amount of time if you add full stacks from the Bounty Hunter and Angler to get him up there. He's definitely one of the better units in the game for sure. Alright. Who else do I see? Alright, Antler. Antler I'll give to B by himself. I really like Antler. I almost want to put him in A just because he's pretty good, just base, but White Mane definitely deserves S. Um, Again, with the amount of aura getting defense, he gets so much health. He gives 6 other units some defensive help and himself. Super great upgrade there for that unit. I really like White Mane and Antler. They're always been, even if they're not really the best unit, they are consistent and they are trustworthy, which is not the case for somebody like Mudman or Golem or some other units up in here. So I'd rather trust Antler than some other people, that is for sure. Who else can we see here? Firelord. Firelord I'm gonna give to B, and Phoenix I'll give to S. Now the biggest reason why, I might even put Phoenix in A. The biggest reason why they're kind of like lower high, because for them to do more damage they have to be taking more. So it's kind of like the lower health they get, the more damage they do, which is nice, but if you have ever even played Legion, which I'm guessing you have, when the whole wave is attacking your one unit, they're not going to survive very long unless you have some stuff on them, or they're, you know, a tier 6 upgrade like Phoenix is, why he's much better and higher up here. But you know, your unit is going to die relatively quickly. Um, so having something like doing more damage by the time you're taking more and more health or having less health it's a hard road to be successful in. I think they do decent, especially Phoenix, and having magic damage and flying. So it's up there, but it's still a little bit questionable. Banana Bunk. Banana Bunk I'll give to A and S. I think it's a very, very strong tank unit. I think it's also a little bit different that they do um, a ranged attack, and the fact that when people attack them, they take damage as well. So that is, it's just plus plus plus. Um, I would say the only reason why I didn't double put him up there is just because having a ranged tank can be a little um, different for a couple of reasons, but definitely Bunk is very, very good for sure. Um, Sorry guys, I'm trying to speed it up here. Egg, I'll give Egg into C just because it's questionable. If you get an unbroken Hydra, Hydra is great. If it is broken, Hydra is probably down here with the Egg itself. Egg is just way too questionable. Um, so that's why it is down there. So APS, another aura for extra attack speed. Honestly, to me, it's, while I like it, it just, I don't know, it doesn't ever feel like I am getting some crazy amount of attack speed that it's doing any kind of damage, because it doesn't do very good damage. Um, it's a decent aura. It's not bad, but as far as S tier, I just don't really think I can put it up into S tier. Nightmare, B, and Doppelganger. Doppelganger are thrown to S because Doppelganger gets way more health than Nightmare has. Nightmare has like no health but does a shit ton of damage, and the attack speed is nice naturally. But no health regen like a lot of other um, units in Forsaken, and you know, just not a whole lot of health to work with there to begin with. Um, okay, who else we got? Okay, Berserker, and then Fatalizer I will give into S. While they are definitely much more boss killers or big high health unit killers, they're still pretty decent. Fatalizer gets way more health, does way more damage. Um, so having that on top of being a good boss killer is pretty strong. I think they're worth it. Minimum, Fatalizer is an A tier unit, but throw some auras and stuff around them, and it's definitely
Pitmaster Select Barbecue Bowls are back at Sonny's, starting at just $10.99.
Yo, I am so sorry. That scared the shit out of me. I don't even see where that came from. But anyway, um, let's see. Millennium. Millennium by itself probably is A, minimum it's B. I think Doomsday is S. It's going to give you extra damage for killing units, and it does so much damage and has a lot of health for a backline unit, but definitely one of the better tier 6s in the game for sure. Samurai used to be good, not so much anymore. The revival is nice, but I don't know, the unit doesn't do a shit ton of damage. It does way more when it gets revived, but you know, still not a whole lot in itself. But Seedling is crap, like let's just be honest. You're only really going to use Chloropixie, which I'll give to B, but you still have to play around with it, right? Or I'm sorry, that's no, that is Chloropixie. What the heck? Sakura. Sakura I'll give to A. Definitely a strong opening, and if you can keep getting them stacks, it's going to be great. Chain Fist sucks. And then Oathbreaker now is a lot better. I don't see the other Oathbreaker upgrade, but there is a third upgrade now, which is actually also much better and good. Veteran is pretty good. The reason why I put Pee-wee and Veteran up here is one, because they have Arcane Defense as a tier 1, which is great. But then the utility of being able to get boosters, throw some extra money for some extra damage is worth it enough to me. Bazooka, okay, Bazooka I will never like. I can't do it. Pyro's definitely an A tier upgrade for sure. I'll throw Zeus. If I can find him, I'm blind. I almost want to throw Zeus into B, but I'll throw Zeus into A as well. I think it's a solid upgrade. But it's they're just very good. But Bazooka in itself, unless you're using the upgrades, it's pretty bad. Casket. Honestly, all the casket upgrades are, yeah, they're not that much better. I mean, they're more tankiness and a decent amount more damage, but I just don't think I can throw them into S tier. Now this unit, the Shadow Dancer, being able to spawn more and more units the more it attacks, if that thing goes unnoticed and unchecked, that thing is going to spawn so many units, and that's just naturally. That's not if you throw some more stuff on them. Priestess they've just nerfed her to the ground. She's just not that great anymore. Azaria, I'm still gonna put into A. I might put her into S just because of how good she really is and the amount of health regen she can do. But by the time you get down to the Azaria, because they've nerfed Priestess and her so bad, it's hard to throw her higher than A and throw her into that S tier unit now. Pilgrim, being able to heal is great. Chieftain, honestly, Chieftain I've never really liked. Unless you know you're gonna cheese, is what everybody calls it in Legion. I don't use them. Pilgrim used to be one of my favorite units in the game, but Chieftain is kind of annoying just having the health go to the, furthest front unit on your team. It's just annoying. So let's get this out of the way. Tempest is terrible, and Leviathan is terrible as well. At the best, I'm putting Leviathan into B, but while the aura can be nice, those units, I have tried so many times to make Flying Force work, and at this point I know that it's me and not everybody else, because everybody loves Flying Force and Leviathans and Tempest, but they're fucking bad. Alright, like, let's just be real, they're fucking bad. Violet and Windhawk. Windhawk is okay, decent just for the stock, but Violet going unchecked can do a shit ton of damage. Sorry, I'm trying to get a little bit quicker doing these because I know that you guys have been watching for a while if you are still here. Sandbadger, fantastic tank. Then Iron Scales. Yeah, I'll give Iron Scales into S. The amount of health, like that is a true tanky unit. Arcane defense tank unit, definitely worth it. Holy Avenger and Sovereign, I'll give to A and S. The amount of damage that can do going unchecked is crazy. And it only gets more and more health and damage too. Disciple, I'm gonna give to A and S as well. Starcaller is such a nice aura to have if you're doing a mana build, and honestly, with how many units have mana in this game at this point, it's super useful. It's a shit ton of like missiles coming out. It's very good. Grarl, give to B for utility, and both of these I'm gonna put into A. I'm not gonna put both of them into S. Just because King Claw is kind of okay. Ocean Templaire has been adjusted so many times that it's just kind of mid. Elite Archer is alright. Trinity Archer I'm going to put into S. That thing can deal out some damage just by himself, let alone if you throw in some, you know, MPS, APS auras or Dark Mage or something. That thing can shred. Soul Gates, I'll go to B and A. I think they're alright. It's just going to spawn more units. And the units are actually pretty decent if you look at their stats compared to other units' stats, but still not too amazing. Wildshroom and Canopy. The only reason why they aren't higher, because I could definitely put them higher because they're good units, is just the fact that they start with half health. They are constantly regenerating health no matter what. That's just their natural self. But the fact that they start with half health, you definitely need some, you know, sea dragons, some pilgrims, or even butchers or something to really, I mean, if you get full health Canopy out there and it's not being touched, that thing is going to survive for a long time no matter what wave it is. These skeletons are new, but they're not that great. I mean, they're okay, but there's nothing really to say about them. They're just kind of meh. But honestly, the new crab guys for, I think it's technically tier 3 or 4, I'm going to put in B and A. I think having somebody else in the middle, kind of like gate guards, but a little different, be able to spawn more units. I think that it's a fun thing to have on your team, is to be able to spawn more little units, especially having it at different tiers. You know, you got gate guards, you got soul gates, and now we have Crabmancer here, so it's fun to have those extra guys spawning more. But this is my list. I went as fast as I could. I know there's a lot of units now in the game, so I'm sorry if you're still here. I appreciate you still being here. Please do not forget, like, subscribe. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, where you guys would place your favorite and least favorite Legion TD2 units, and we will see you guys in the next one.